Welcome to Google's Iowa caucus election coverage, and I'm joined right now by Chris Washington Blade. That is an LGBT publication based in Washington, D.C. First of all, what are your thoughts on the Iowa caucus? Who's leading? Who do you think might come out ahead by the end of all the vote count?
Well, the polls keep changing every day, it seems now. So if you look by them, it's really hard to say. Recent polls have shown that Mitt Romney has a lot of new strength in there, and that also Rick Santorum is rising up in the polls. But the polls keep changing every day, so really who's going to come out on top of the Iowa caucuses is really a question for me. I'm not really sure. If you forced my hand, though, I think that Ron Paul has been showing a lot of consistent strength recently about the past couple of weeks. So I would suspect that he's either going to come out on top or make a very strong, or come up very close to be on top in the election.
All right. Well, you mentioned Ron Paul, and in your article you talked about some of his voting record. He voted against the federal marriage amendment twice, which would have banned same-sex marriage throughout the country. He also supported the repeal of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, but he supported the Defense of Marriage Act and expressed some disappointment in President Obama not defending that. So how do you think Ron Paul is perceived by the LGBT community, and how will this affect his chances?
Well, he's definitely got a mix. On January 10th when New Hampshire rolls around.
Right, absolutely. Now, you also reported on Newt Gingrich, who signed the National Organization for Marriage pledge to support the Defense of Marriage Act. Gay rights activists have pointing out his failed marriages, and in a sense attacking him on his stance. Do you think that so-called values voters will be a major force in the 2012 election? And do you think this hurts Newt Gingrich's chances in the election and in the nomination process too?
In the nomination process?
Yeah.
Those are two. I think that him signing this, well, this definitely puts him aligns Newt Gingrich for those people who are opposed to same-sex marriage. That definitely puts them. The fact that Iowa is one of the states where same-sex marriage is legal and how they want to protect marriage rights for gay couples there. I will be in Iowa starting on Sunday, and I'm going to hopefully get a chance to ask some questions for the candidates on where they stand on these issues and try to get some clear understanding of their positions. So hopefully something will come of that will clarify where things are with them.
And I'm curious, what would your questions be? You know, the sort of most important ones for you to address to them, maybe the top three that you'd want to have them trying to answer.
Okay, well, I think that for Mitt Romney, in 1994, he wrote a letter to Log Cabin Republicans saying that he'd be stronger on, he'd be able to bring gay issues into the mainstream more than his opponent at the time, Ted Kennedy, could. And that same letter, he also said he would co-sponsor the Employment Non-Discrimination Act. And that legislation, as it stands now, will protect gay and transgender people from discrimination in the workplace. So in 1994, Romney said he was going to co-sponsor that act. And I'm very curious if in 2012, if as president, he would support that legislation and move that through as president, try to move that through Congress. And for Newt Gingrich, retiring Congressman Barney Frank has said he wanted to debate Newt Gingrich on the Defense of Marriage Act. So I'm very curious if Newt Gingrich would take him up on this offer. And and for Rick Santorum, who's made all sorts of wildly anti-gay claims throughout his campaign, one thing that he has mentioned in his campaign is the importance of the family. And it's like for him to clarify, if I get a chance to talk with him, I'd like to clarify if he thinks the family is such an important unit for protecting American families, why he would deny the protections of marriage to gay and lesbian people who are trying to set up their families and want protections for them. So I guess those would be the three questions that I have if I could get to those people.
All right. Well, I hope you get that opportunity.
I do too.
All right. Well, Chris Johnson, thanks so much for talking with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you much. Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.